Money doesn't buy happiness. Anyone who says that is having the wrong conversation. Money buys access, and access buys a completely different operating system for reality. Powerful people disagree on whether this is a fair reward for success or a cancer on society. Both sides believe they are defending a moral principle. Where do you stand? By the end of this, the world might look a little different. The debate often starts with a defense of efficiency. The world is impossibly noisy. There are 7 billion people, each with needs, ideas, and demands. How does anyone with power or resources decide who to listen to? They use filters. A recommendation from a trusted friend, an introduction from a business partner, the credential of an elite university. These are all signals in the noise. They are shortcuts to quality. A venture capitalist gets 1,000 unsolicited proposals a day. She can't read them all. But when an email comes from another investor who just funded a billion-dollar company, that email gets opened. That meeting gets taken. This seems logical. It seems efficient. The system is designed to connect proven people with promising opportunities. This logic is clean. It's compelling. It's also how opportunity gets trapped in a closed loop. The filter works by recognizing patterns it has seen before. It favors the familiar. It trusts the known. A brilliant programmer from a state school with a revolutionary idea is an unknown quantity. A mediocre programmer from a top university who interned at a major tech firm is a known one. The system is biased toward the latter. The filter mistakes credentials for competence, and a network for merit. The cost of this efficiency is the silencing of unknown talent, the loss of ideas from outside the club. The opportunity cost is staggering, but it's invisible. It's the sum of all the emails that were never opened, the calls that were never returned. The system works perfectly, except for all the genius it leaves standing on the outside. That seems like a flaw. A bug in the system that could be patched with better outreach or blind reviews. But what happens when this filtering mechanism stops being a passive feature and becomes an active, monetized tool? What happens when you can just buy your way to the front of the line? This is where the debate shifts from efficiency to equity, and the lines get much sharper. It creates a formal two-tier reality. Look at the rise of concierge medicine. For an annual fee, you get the doctor's personal cell phone number. You get same-day appointments. You bypass the entire structure of modern healthcare, the waiting rooms, the scheduling battles, the rushed 7-minute consultations. Proponents call this a simple market transaction. You are paying for convenience and a higher level of service. It's a luxury good, like a first-class airline ticket. But the consequences are far deeper. When the wealthiest patients opt out of the general system, they take their resources and influence with them. The best doctors are pulled into these exclusive practices, reducing the supply for everyone else. The wait times in the public system get longer, the quality of care degrades. The wealthy patients who used to complain about long waits are now silent. They solved the problem for themselves. The money didn't just buy a better experience, it actively made the standard experience worse for everyone who couldn't afford the upgrade. This pattern repeats everywhere. Consider the legal system. 2 people are charged with the same crime. One is wealthy, the other is not. The wealthy individual posts bail and goes home. They continue to work. They meet with their legal team in a comfortable office, strategizing for months. Their lawyers, paid by the hour, can file endless motions, request volumes of discovery, and overwhelm the prosecution with paperwork. The person without wealth sits in a jail cell. They lose their job. They lose their housing. Their contact with their public defender is through thick glass. The pressure to accept a plea bargain, for a crime they may have never committed, is immense. The money didn't buy innocence. It bought the ability to properly navigate the process of justice. It bought time. It bought endurance. Justice became a question of who could afford to run out the clock. That sounds damning. But there is a counter-argument, and it's one you hear in quiet rooms and on golf courses. It's the argument of skin in the game. The idea is that people with significant wealth have more to lose, and therefore their perspective should be weighed more heavily. A factory owner employing 500 people has more skin in the game regarding local tax policy than a temporary resident. An investor who has risked millions on a new venture has a vested, informed interest in the regulations that govern their industry. From this perspective, their ability to get a meeting with a regulator or a city council member is not corruption. It's a necessary part of a functioning economy. You want the people with the most at stake to have a voice. It's a seductive argument, tying influence directly to investment and risk. The problem arrives when you ask who gets to define skin in the game. Does a single mother working 2 jobs to keep her kids in a safe school district have less skin in the game than the private equity firm that owns her apartment building? She has her entire life invested in that community. The firm has a number on a spreadsheet, yet the private equity firm can afford to send a team of lawyers and lobbyists to City Hall to argue against tenant protections. The mother can't afford to take a Tuesday afternoon off work. The concept of skin in the game is weaponized to mean financial skin in the game. All other forms of investment, time, community, family, life, are rendered invisible. This is where individual access scales into systemic influence. It's one thing to get your kid into a better school. It's another thing entirely to rewrite the rules for all schools. This happens in Washington, D.C. and every other capital city, every single day. It's called lobbying. Imagine a new piece of environmental legislation is proposed. The oil and gas industry can deploy hundreds of lobbyists. These are former congressmen, former chiefs of staff, people who have the personal cell numbers of the people in power. They are in the halls of government every single day, having coffee, attending fundraisers, providing educational materials, and drafting model legislation. They have unlimited resources to make their case, over and over. The environmental groups, often running on donations, might have a handful of advocates. They get one meeting, if they're lucky. They have to fight for every minute of attention. It's a war of attrition fought with conversations and relationships. The side with the greater capacity for access wins. The result is a law filled with loopholes, exemptions, and subsidies for the very industry it was meant to regulate. The process was perfectly legal. No bribes were exchanged. The outcome was simply purchased through the overwhelming application of access. The rules of the game were set by one of the players. This creates the final and perhaps most corrosive effects of a world run by access. It creates a psychological bubble. If you live your entire life in a world where doors open for you, where your problems are solved by an assistant, where you never have to wait in line or fight with the bureaucracy, your perception of reality begins to warp. You start to believe this frictionless existence is normal. You hear about someone struggling with a landlord or an insurance company, and you quietly wonder what they're doing wrong. Their struggles seem like personal failings, a lack of competence or drive. You've never had that problem, so the problem must be with them. This creates a leadership class, in business and in politics, that is fundamentally disconnected from the lived experience of the population they are supposed to serve. They make decisions about healthcare from the comfort of a concierge medical practice. They set minimum wages without ever having to calculate if it's enough to feed a family. They design social safety nets based on spreadsheets, with no understanding of the grinding, soul-crushing friction of actually trying to use them. They are trying to solve problems they have never personally encountered in a world they do not inhabit. The empathy gap becomes a chasm, so we have a system where access begins as a logical filter for efficiency, but that filter is biased. That bias is then monetized, creating a separate, superior reality for those who can pay. That power is then leveraged to rewrite the rules of the system itself, all while insulating the architects from the consequences of their own designs. One side calls this the earned reward of success, the other calls it the slow-motion demolition of a fair society. One sees networking, the other sees soft corruption. The question is no longer whether money buys access. We know it does. The question is what that access costs everyone else. When the powerful can purchase their own reality, who is left to fix the one the rest of us have to live in? Where do you draw the line between a perk and a poison?